nightmare. Five terrifyingly true, scary Reddit stories. I think someone is watching me. Written and submitted by TheBorkedrolf. I'll be honest, I never use this site, but I needed a place to share what's been happening to me, so some backstory. I talk to myself a lot, whether it's to brainstorm or just when I'm bored, and I kind of like to do it outside so I don't bother my family with it. The place I live in has bluffs all around and wooded areas galore. I live outside of town, and right next to my house and my friend's house is this little patch of woods and this dilapidated little rundown house. Out of nowhere, about 6 months ago, this camper shows up there, and me and my friend thought maybe it was just somebody living there, just using the house for electricity or something, you know? Regardless, about 3 weeks ago, I was outside, talking to myself at 11 o'clock p.m., and I started hearing footsteps, and felt as though I was being watched. I just paused mid-sentence of my rant. Now, I wasn't really concerned if it was an animal, because when I go outside, I bring this katana that I bought on Amazon with me. But as soon as I stopped talking, so did the footsteps. And for whatever reason, I shouted out, "If any animal or person's up there, I suggest leaving. I got a sword, and I know how to use it." Obviously, that doesn't sound that threatening, but I didn't hear anything else, so I just shrugged it off and continued talking. But then I heard footsteps leaving after I continued. And these were human, for sure. I only heard one set of footsteps, and there was weight behind them. Needless to say, I went back in the house after that. Now, I wish that was it, but it got way, way creepier. Just a few days ago, my dad and sister left at around 6 o'clock p.m. to go to my brother's. So, I was home alone. I was walking around talking to myself about Overwatch 2 for some reason when I passed by my sister's room, and I noticed the door was cracked open a bit. Which isn't out of the usual, because, she leaves that open a lot when she leaves. But when I was in the kitchen, I heard her door slide shut. I know it was hers because it sounds different than mine and my dad's doors. I figured it was no big deal. My sister had just decided to stay home. Then I heard someone clear their throat. It did kind of sound like my sister, so I just shrugged it off and went outside to grab the mail. When I came back, it would have been like, 10 minutes later, because I noticed a storm in the distance and I was watching it. I figured I'd go in and let my sister know about the storm. So I said, "Hey, Erica, you awake?" And I slid her door open a crack. But when I did, she wasn't in her room. This had me on edge, because that meant that someone else shut her door and cleared their throat. I immediately got on Discord call with 3 of my friends and told them what was going on. I proceeded to clear the house, katana in hand. All closets and rooms, even under the beds. Nothing. Now, I know I should have called the police, but I didn't want to bother with it, so I just sat down and hopped on a game with my friends. I was talking with this girl I like, and I told her I was a little concerned. That I was just being paranoid and I just needed to relax. I don't know. Maybe she was right. It's been a few days now, and I know what I saw. And I know what I heard. What do you guys think, though? Am I just overreacting? You guys think maybe I might be right about this? When a child makes eye contact with a murderer. Written and submitted by Irish Eyes 1975. I recently shared this story for the first time in a True Scary Stories group on Facebook. I got a lot of feedback from people who lived in the same town I did when this event happened. Felt good to finally share my experience. Shortly after posting, a woman contacted me and physically threatened me and my family if I wrote about him again. She believes him to be innocent, etc. It spooked me. I took my story down. I don't need weirdos like her in my life. I've since done some thinking about this, and I wanted to post my story again, somewhere anonymously. It's my experience, and I'm not going to let some crazy child killer dater bitch scare me. So, here it is. I originally thought this incident happened in January of 1984. I now realize it was probably later in 1983. I was 8 years old and lived in Aurora, Colorado, a suburb southeast of Denver. We lived in a brand new subdivision, and I loved it. Our house was busy. I had 3 older sisters, an older brother, a grandmother, and my mom living in our home at the time. My 10-year-old sister and I shared a bedroom on the main floor. Our house was a ranch style, and I loved this room. My twin bed was pushed up against a wall that had a window that faced into our backyard. I liked to push the curtains aside at night and perch my elbows on the windowsill and look outside. The window was elevated, but not so high that I couldn't see into the yard easily. My older sisters shared the room next to us, and my grandmother was in a large room across the hallway from us. My mother had a finished bedroom all the way downstairs in the basement. My brother, he had the rest of the basement. He was 16 years old at the time and had a lot of friends that were always coming and going. I remember our house always being full of guests. We had a really cold spell hit us that week. It was super icy out, and my sister had been playing in the backyard. Our backyard had not yet been enclosed with a fence, so we had these circular snow sides that we would stand on and glide across the slick parts of the grass. We weren't good at putting our outdoor toys away and had left them strewn across the lawn. That night, something woke me out of a sound sleep. I thought about getting up and going downstairs to sleep with my mom. I did this from time to time, and she and I were really close. Then I heard a noise outside my window. It sounded like someone was slowly walking across the snow in the backyard. I could hear the frozen grass crunching under their feet. I then heard someone say, "Shit," or another explicit word, and something clinked. I perched up out of my bed and moved my curtain aside and looked out of the window. I think I originally thought I would see my brother or one of his friends out there. He often came in late at night, past curfew, and usually snuck through the backyard into an open basement window. I remember thinking that he shouldn't be doing this on a school night, and I was going to tell my mom in the morning that he woke me up. It wasn't my brother. I saw a young man, probably in his early 20s, that I didn't recognize. I made eye contact with him, and then he quickly scanned the rest of the yard looking for my brother. I didn't see him anywhere. I was gonna move away from the window, but the man's eyes were glued on mine, and he started walking towards my gaze. I froze. I couldn't move. He came as close as he could to the glass, and he just smiled at me. It was an eerie smile, too. It was an, "Oh, look, you caught me doing something I shouldn't be doing," kind of smile. I remember he had crystal blue eyes, almost gray. Something about his expression was just not right, and it took me a few seconds to realize that I was feeling fear. He was not one of my brother's friends, nor was he supposed to be in our yard at that time of night. I panicked and jumped off my bed and quickly ran downstairs to tell my mom. Once I got to the basement, I saw that my brother was sound asleep in his bed as well. This scared me more, as I knew now for sure that this man in our yard was most likely not a friend of my brother's. My mom calmed me down, came upstairs and turned the light on outside and looked into the yard from the sliding glass door windows. She didn't see anyone. I remember her not making a big deal out of it, and I ended up sleeping in the basement bedroom with her the rest of the night. I didn't sleep well. I wondered why that man was in our yard and where he went. I remember feeling scared that he might come back. I don't know the exact timeline, but I'm guessing it was a few weeks later that a family a few streets over from us were murdered in the middle of the night by an intruder with a hammer and a knife. The father, the mother, and the 7-year-old daughter were killed, and a 3-year-old daughter was left for dead but miraculously survived. This crime sent our entire community over the edge. The police didn't seem to know who had done this horrible thing or even why. All we knew was that the hammer killer probably chose their house at random and came in through an open garage door. No one in my family mentioned to me the man I saw in our yard again. I asked my mother about it years later, and she tensed up. The hammer killer case went cold and the community moved on, as people do. I moved further south to a different side of Denver, and I never forgot that man in my yard though, and always felt that he might have been the same man who murdered that family. As years went by, more information came out that linked the murder of the family to a vicious murder and rape of a woman in another community, Lakewood, as well. They also linked him to a savage attack on a couple and a flight attendant in Aurora as well through DNA. He was a serial predator, and he was active in our community that whole time. So fast forward to 2019, and I'm watching the news. I can't believe it. They've solved the cold case of that family's murder from 1984, as well as the other attacks. They flash the picture of the suspect across the screen, and my heart stops. It's him. It's the man that I saw as a child. I have the face saved in my memory because he spooked me that badly. I said something about it to my brother, and he just shrugged about it. I mentioned it to some of my friends, and they said that was creepy, but there was no way I could have remembered something like that. I thought they might be right until the news also showed some photos of the suspect when he was younger and likely committed the murders. That is exactly the man that I saw, and I know it. It's changed the way that I think about things. It's changed the gratitude that I feel for my life. What if he hadn't tripped on our sleds in the yard and somehow made his way into our house? My sisters and I could have been the ones on the news. My House. Written and submitted by Mumbling Homeless. So, I've lived in this house my whole life. It's a paranormal magnet, kind of like a hotel for ghosts, and not because of the house, but because me and my grandpa lived there. My grandpa's side of the family have some spiritual connection that no one knows how it happened, but, we do. Every gift has its pros and cons, and my grandpa can see things sometimes. It's nice when you get to see a past relative, or sometimes even an angel, but then oftentimes there's bad things, such as demons, entities. When I was younger, I could somehow predict stuff, like I would randomly say, "Hey, Uncle's coming," and there he would. He'd show up sometime later. I could also see family members. I was a little too young to remember, but my parents told me that I could also feed off energy, and I could easily tell if something's good or bad, but sometimes if I'm around someone bad, I can actually become sick. So now that I've explained that, let me tell you a few stories. This one takes place when I was around 5, I think. I slept in a mattress with my mom and 3 siblings. We were poor, and the only reason my house was big is because my family built it. I woke up and noticed the shadow of a man in front of me. I turned around and I couldn't find anything that would make that shape, but I told it hi, and then I fell back asleep. Another one, I got out of my bed and woke up in the middle of the night, felt someone sit on the edge of the bed and put their hand on my shoulder, and then get up and leave. I fell back asleep and asked everyone in the morning. No one had done that. I've got a few more, but once I type a lot, Reddit tends to lag, and it's kind of annoying. But if you guys are interested in learning more about my life, hearing some of my grandpa's stories, I've always wanted to tell people about this stuff, but when I do, they accuse my whole family of just being insane, so I guess just why not tell a bunch of strangers, huh? Well, bye. Hope you have a nice day. Update. Well, the first time I realized I wasn't crazy was when me and my grandpa and my grandma went to my aunt's house, and we were just talking to him at the table with a doorway that was behind us. And I just kept feeling like someone was behind me. I ignored it, though, until I saw it from my side eye. It was a man with a hat just standing in the doorway. I'm guessing my grandpa noticed my reaction, and he just said, "Don't worry, I see it too. Just look straight ahead and ignore it so it goes away, okay?" My two aunts heard and looked, but they didn't see anything. They just proceeded to tell us stories of the house and how it was haunted. I have no clue about the history of the house, since it was my aunt's girlfriend's, and they've since broke up. But yeah, that was sort of a terrifying experience. Lost in the Woods. Written and submitted by Bad Guys Fan 1422. So this isn't my personal story. It's from my lifelong friend Jackson that I've been friends with for 17 years. And in all that time, there's only one incident scarred in his mind. Years ago, we were on a camping trip with his family. It was summer 2008, and we were relaxing on the way to the campsite. We got to this small town on the way and decided to camp in their woods. So we set up camp. Jackson's mom made dinner, and after we watched other camping videos that their family had recorded, we made marshmallows and had a fun time. Then around 8:30, we went to bed. Now we're going to shift to Jackson's perspective. At around 1 a.m., he woke up. He says he doesn't know why, and since he did wake up, he took a walk. It was around 5 minutes later when he heard something. He hadn't noticed it before, but there was a faint noise. Thump, drag, thump. Jackson, being the cocky person he is, muttered, "Assholes don't know how to keep it down for a while." He'd assumed it was a drunk taking long, exaggerated steps, but it stayed the same volume every time. Then he got curious and walked towards the noise. He hid behind a bush when he got close enough. What he saw scared him so bad that he forgot to scream, which actually saved him. A man had dismembered body parts with him and was trying to stick them to a tree. He had multiple dismemberments with him. Then he saw a bag full of axes. That's what he was hearing. The thump was him using an axe to stick a body to a tree, dragged another to a different tree, then stuck that one. Thump, drag. Now Jackson was confused. The man looked directly at him, and Jackson ran the second he noticed and got lost. He somehow lost the man, but he realized that he was lost as well. Switching to my perspective, I woke up hours later and saw that he was gone. So I woke his parents up and we called out for him. We eventually found him, but his clothes were torn, his eyes were baggy, and he was in shock. We took him to the hospital and he was having nightmares. Every night he'd wake up screaming, "Don't kill me, please!" When he finally calmed out of his mental state, he told me the story, and I believe him, because he's never lied to me before. It's 14 years later, and we're still good friends. This incident was never forgotten, only ignored. But I wanted to tell you this just to get it off my chest.
The Woman on My Street. Written and submitted by Waziot. This is a 100% true story. It's gonna sound pretty insane, but I swear everything I'm about to tell you, it actually happened. So during the fall semester of my senior year of high school, so about 14 years ago now, every night after dinner I'd walk my dog Jessie down the street to a small field near our house. So 2 things you should know. 1, my house is situated on a hill and you have to walk over the top of it and all the way to the bottom to get to the field. It's lined with trees and lots of little lamps, so it's pretty well lit, but it can still seem spooky at times. 2, Jessie is one of the most well-behaved golden retrievers I've ever seen in my life. She never barks at anyone, she never runs off, she doesn't even chase squirrels, so normally I don't keep her on a leash when we're just walking down the street, you know? Anyway, so I start walking with her down our steps in the street. Just like any other night, it's about 9:30 and the sun's long gone, so we usually just walk down the middle of the road because not that many cars drive through. Jessie's not on a leash, but right by my side as we round the top of the hill to go down, when all of a sudden we see a woman walking toward us in the middle of the road. Now we're at the top of the hill and she's about halfway up, staggering in this weird, unnatural sort of way. She was walking almost as if she was the ghost out of The Grudge or some horrible Silent Hill character. But when I first saw her, I wasn't really scared, just more worried if she was okay. I thought maybe she'd been hit by a car and one of her legs was broken, but she was moving along in a jilted but steady pace. She had long black hair and a dark dress. Her skin was pretty pale in the street lamp's light, and I didn't really know what to do or make of the scene. I just kind of stopped and was staring at her when suddenly Jessie started running toward her and barking like crazy. I've never seen her bark at anything like this before, and I honestly feel like if someone broke into our house, she'd just go up to him expecting to be petted, you know? But here she was, just growling ferociously, almost like she was ready to strike. I chased after her and only catching up when she was right in front of the woman, basically barking right in her face. The woman didn't react at all. She didn't jump, she didn't put her hands out. She just stood there and stared at my dog. I bent down and grabbed Jessie by the collar to pull her back, and I was maybe 2 feet from the woman, and I started apologizing profusely, but when I turned my head up to look at her, I stopped. Now, I'm crouching down, looking up at her, with a street lamp shining down on both of us. She slowly turns and looks down toward me, without saying anything, and I immediately see it. She doesn't have a face. Not in the her features were all mixed together, washed out away. She literally doesn't have a face. It's complete blackness, like looking into the sky and staring at the blackness between 2 stars. I can see her hair, I can see her neck, but I can't see a single feature between. I'm telling you, it was absolute and utter black. A void. I looked into it and stopped dead mid-apology as she looked down back at me without a word. After a few seconds of us just staring at each other in silence, she turns away and looks back forward, commencing to walk again. I let go of my dog's collar more in surprise than anything, and immediately Jessie runs away to the other side of the street. So chasing after her, I catch up and grab her by the collar again on the sidewalk now. It couldn't have been more than 3 to 5 seconds. But holding my dog again, I turned to look back at the woman, and she had disappeared. At the rate she was walking, it should have taken her at least 30 seconds to get to the top of the hill. But there was nothing. She completely vanished. And at the time, it was weirdly the most unsettling part for me. What the fuck just happened? Did it even happen? My dog had reacted to her too, and so I wasn't the only one who saw it. Slowly, I took Jessie the rest of the way down and watched as she ambled around the field. The whole time, I kept looking over my shoulder, deeply afraid that something was going to sneak up on me. All night, I became more and more bothered by what had happened, trying to rationalize it away. Maybe the way her hair fell blocked the light, but I would have seen something. The tip of her nose, part of her mouth, but there was nothing. Literally nothing. Now, I'm not religious, and the logical part of me doesn't believe in ghosts, so if there's no heaven or hell, how do you explain this kind of afterlife where we still keep our bodies and our minds? I don't even know. I still don't quite believe in spirits, but I genuinely can't explain what happened that night. I've had some lesser encounters with weird phenomena, but this is the only time I've been within arm's reach of a ghost. I actually stared one in the face as it looked back at me. I'm happy to hear any of your thoughts, answers, questions you guys might have. What do you make of this? Make it even creepier if you Google ghost without face. The first result is this Wikipedia article. Link in the description.
Thank you for being a part of This Living Nightmare. We hope to disturb you again soon.